Melbourne didn't just open a new Formula One season, it exposed a new Formula One era. Under the lights and under pressure, the 2026 cars revealed what really matters now. Not just speed, but stability, energy control, tyre life, and trust in the car beneath the driver. And in Australia, some teams already looked ready for that fight. Australia gave us our first real read on the 2026 cars. Not just who was fast in one session, but which teams already understand this rule set, which cars are still too sensitive, and which early strengths are real enough to matter over the next month. Melbourne was the first proper stress test of a new Formula One era, and it exposed something important straight away. This season will not be decided by peak speed alone. It will be decided by which teams can make these cars work consistently across qualifying, race pace, tyre life, starts, and energy deployment. That is the central takeaway from the weekend. Australia did prove Mercedes arrived with the most resolved car. Ferrari showed real race potential, but not enough control over the full weekend. McLaren had speed in places, but the car never looked fully under control. Red Bull may be the most dangerous package on the grid right now, but it is also one of the least predictable. And that matters because the first phase of a regulation cycle usually rewards the team with the clearest overall concept, not necessarily the one with the single fastest lap. Melbourne revealed that especially clearly because these 2026 cars are doing more than the old generation ever did. The lap is now shaped by active aero states, battery usage, harvesting, and where teams decide to spend electrical energy. That changes how the cars behave at exactly the moments drivers need confidence most, on corner entry, on traction, and at the end of long straights. George Russell described a yo-yo effect across the lap as teams managed energy differently from straight to straight. Charles Leclerc said defending was difficult because drivers did not always know exactly when a rival's electrical power would arrive. Russell also pointed out that straight mode reduced front-end support and created understeer, which is one of the most important technical clues from the whole weekend. These cars are not just fast or slow, their balance is moving depending on energy state and aero mode. That is why Mercedes' performance matters beyond the result. On Friday, Russell admitted the team was still working through battery harvesting and deployment. The car had understeer, and the package was not yet fully comfortable. By Saturday morning, Russell was quickest in FP3. By qualifying, Mercedes locked out the front row. Then came the decisive part. The race did not go cleanly at first. Both drivers had poor starts. Antonelli lost ground immediately, and Russell said his battery was effectively empty on the grid. Even with that, the car recovered, protected the tyres, handled the VSC timing properly, and still had enough pace to control the race. That is what a mature Round 1 package looks like. It is not about one number on one lap. It is about surviving imperfect moments without the whole weekend collapsing. Ferrari leaves Australia with a more interesting story than the finishing result suggests. The SF26 was quick enough to top FP1, with Leclerc ahead of Hamilton, and all weekend Ferrari looked aggressive off the line. In the race, Leclerc's launch was excellent and immediately put him in position to lead. That tells us Ferrari has a car that can attack, but the weakness is still obvious. Ferrari looked dangerous in race trim and sharp off the line, but it lacked the qualifying authority and strategic control to own the weekend. In qualifying, Leclerc dealt with an energy deployment issue in Q2, and Ferrari simply was not close enough to Mercedes over a single lap. On Sunday, though, the picture changed. Leclerc said Ferrari was closer than expected in race trim, and that matters because it suggests the underlying platform is more competitive over a stint than over one lap preparation. The problem is that Ferrari gave away track position by not taking the first VSC stop, and once that window closed, the car did not have enough margin to recover the race. So, Australia says Ferrari has a car that can fight, but not yet one that can dictate terms.
McLaren's weekend felt flatter than many expected. Oscar Piastri topped FP2, and on Friday there were signs the team might be a genuine threat.
But the further the weekend progressed, the less convincing that picture became. The car remained competitive, but not commanding. Andrea Stella said qualifying was roughly in line with expectations, which is a carefully revealing line when a team entered the season with serious attention on it. After the race, Lando Norris was direct. The gap to the leaders was real, and holding fifth was more about limiting damage than threatening the front. That matters because it suggests McLaren is not just missing setup detail. Norris had already said these cars feel pretty different, more challenging, more complicated around the battery and power unit, and the kind of package that still needs laps to really understand. And that fits what Melbourne showed. The McLaren had speed, but the car never looked fully under control. Piastri's crash before the start also removed one of the most valuable data points of the weekend, which leaves the team heading to China with less clarity than it would have wanted. Red Bull may be the most dangerous package on the grid right now, but it is also one of the least predictable. The pace was real. Isaac Hadjar qualified third on debut and spoke positively about the chassis and power unit as the session evolved. That is not a fluke, but the failure modes were real too. Verstappen's qualifying crash came after a rear lock under braking that he said he had never experienced before. In the race, Hadjar retired with a power unit issue, and Verstappen's recovery from the back showed both the speed and the volatility of the car. He fought through to sixth, but also reported a battery issue at the start and heavy graining on the hard tyre. That combination tells us a lot. Red Bull can still produce lap time. What it has not yet shown is predictability. Under these rules, that is a serious problem because braking confidence, battery timing, and aero state all need to line up at once. A car that can be brilliant for half a lap and nervous for the next half is going to keep leaving points on the table. Behind the top four, the midfield was arguably even more revealing because it showed which teams already have discipline in this new environment. Audi's first weekend was a genuine success. Both cars reached Q2. Gabriel Bortoleto made the top 10 before a technical issue ended his qualifying run, and then he scored points on Sunday while reporting that the car and power unit held up reliably. For a new works entry, that is a serious opening statement. Racing Bulls were impressive too. Arvid Lindblad qualified 9th and scored on debut, and the team's own comments suggested the bigger issue was converting pace into race execution rather than finding raw performance in the first place. Haas also deserves real credit. Biermann finished 7th with a one-stop strategy, even while Ocon complained about rear instability. Those are different stories, but they point in the same direction. Early in 2026, clean execution is beating imperfect speed. Further back, the weekend was more about survival and data. Aston Martin spent much of it chasing mileage, with Alonso openly saying the team was short on batteries and needed laps more than lap time. Adrian Newey described Sunday as an opportunity to learn about the AMR26, which tells you exactly where that program is right now. Cadillac had a tougher debut, but even there, getting one car to the finish mattered. Perez came home 3 laps down, and Bottas retired. Yet the value of simply gathering real race data in round 1 should not be underestimated for a new team. Williams lost continuity at the worst possible time, with Sainz missing qualifying after losing FP3, and that is especially painful in a season where every clean session matters more than usual. Australia was unforgiving to teams that arrived needing track time just to understand their own package. And now the pressure increases immediately because China comes next with a sprint weekend. That means one practice session before sprint qualifying. Less time, less correction, less room to study deployment behavior, balance changes, and tyre response. Antonelli said Shanghai will demand that teams be immediately sharp with deployment, but should be a more straightforward race on energy use than Melbourne. Australia may not have fixed the exact pecking order for China, but it did make one thing clear. Teams still chasing understanding are going to be brutally exposed on a sprint weekend. So what did we actually learn about the 2026 Formula 1 cars from Australia? We learned that the best early car is not the one that looks dramatic in one session. It is the one that stays coherent as the weekend changes shape. We learned that race starts, energy timing, and aero mode interaction are already central performance differentiators. We learned that qualifying pace and race pace can split sharply under these regulations. And we learned that Mercedes currently looks like the team that understands the new rules better than anyone else. Ferrari is close enough to be dangerous, but still not broad enough across the weekend. McLaren has pace, but not yet control. Red Bull has upside, but too much instability. The midfield is ready to punish every major team that leaves performance unused. That is the real message from Melbourne. The first race of 2026 was not just a win for George Russell. It was the first proof that in this new era, understanding the car is every bit as important as unlocking it.